Hey folks, today we got our first developer diary for EU5. This isn't replacing the Tinto Talks or the Tinto Flavor series. It is a new overlook of the major features of this game. I think this is mainly for people who haven't been following all the dev diaries. You're going to get a good overview of the systems coming and the latest information around it as well. So today they're going to talk about the population and the living world of EU5. Now, population has kind of been in earlier games, but EU5, very like Victoria, now has like individual populations that do specific things, and they have culture, they have religion, and it is a lot more in depth than previous games. You'll see that as we go through this dev diary today. As they do say at the beginning, some of this information has been covered in previous Tinto Talks, so if you are new to the game, if you are new to the channel, and you want to catch up with a lot of the information, I do have a whole series covering all those Tinto Talks, so you can catch up with all the information as we build up to the November release. But let's just get into the actual content of this dev diary. So EU5 is the 5th edition of this franchise that spans over 3 decades of development. But in this game, they're introducing what can be considered as a revolutionary approach to both world simulation and population management. If you've played Victoria 3, I think it is kind of similar, but it is different to how that game plays out. Moving beyond the abstract numbers of its predecessors and bringing in a truly living world. So every population's there, they have religion, they have culture, you will see them kind of come and go, you will see your population grow, it is based on actions that take place, and you'll see that later on in this dev diary around like the Black Death, how people recover from that, and other factors that can affect your world as well. So spanning the centuries from 1337 to 1837, I think that's the first confirmation of the end date of the game. I know a lot of us thought it would be this date, but I think that is the first time we've actually had it confirmed by somebody, although I might have missed it, I guess, recently. They hope to immerse players in a historically rich and dynamic world where every decision has consequences for the people in the world, but then also the world itself. The heart of EU5's living world is the population system, which aims to simulate every living person in 1337 at a granular level. Let's see how the game performs when it's trying to do that later on, as we'll see some of the numbers later on in this dev diary, what those numbers can get to. Unlike previous versions of Europa Universalis, where the population was a more generalized statistic, EU5 portrays individual working people with their own needs, wants, and roles within the nation. This is where the trade side, the good sides of the game, really shines, as we'll see later on. You do have to look after your population. It isn't just a number, hey, 50,000 people live here, and you don't really have to worry about the number too much. In this game, warfare affects it, disease, whatever you're getting up to, you have to be careful with your population because it affects so much of how your realm will perform. And you can see our first screenshot here. This is going to be Hungary in 1337, so you can see the population. I will say during this dev diary, they're going to show us a bunch of areas around the world. It isn't just focused in one area, so you will see a lot of information. There's Japan, France, a bunch of areas where we're going to get an updated look at how it looks in the game itself. So that is Hungary in 1337. The population are the lifeblood of a nation. Without them, buildings shut down, manpower is non-existent, and colonies fail to populate. Managing your population effectively is a top priority as they require feeding, work, and industry, armies and navies to defend and expand, and they'll even provide your realm with wealth through taxation and investment. So this system affects everything in the game. It affects research as well, depending on how clever they are. They're going to cover that in a second as well. They're going to show us next the tooltip for the burghers in Pest, and you can see here there are 2,800 of these. Of that number, just over 1,000 are available for employment. The promotion is currently plus 16. There are currently 28,000 peasants that could promote to be burghers, the current employment level, and then below it kind of duplicates that information for some reason. But as you can see, if you look over this, it will tell you what's happening with this class of people, how quickly people are promoting. If you need more burghers to work in buildings or something, you can then implement things to get this promotion happening quicker through cabinet actions and some other things you can do as well. But this is the burgher level in Pest in 1337. They are going to show us stuff from later in the game as we get through this dev diary. Each population is assigned a culture and religious beliefs, leading to a diverse population in almost every location. With the hundreds of religions and thousands of cultures in play, it is going to be rare to have a completely homogeneous demographic split. Culture and religion are not just cosmetic, they directly impact the game systems such as cultural prestige, available advances, different mechanical behaviors, and the literacy of the population. For example, a single social class such as peasants inhabiting a single location in Iberia can be made up, as you can see in this screenshot, of various cultural and religious groups such as Catalan Catholics, Andalusi Sunnis, and also Sephardic Jews. I probably butchered how that's pronounced. Players must decide how they want to balance the needs and wants of their diverse population whilst also navigating the friction that they will bring. So this is political, cultural, and religious differences, causing problems for your realm, bringing up rebellions, generally affecting your gameplay, especially if you're a realm that can't integrate more cultures than a different realm could do. And you can see in the screenshot that's on here at the moment, the culture of Mercia and then the breakdown of the people that are here. And obviously you could build up these ones, or you could try get rid of some of the smaller ones. Naturally, over time, obviously, the smaller ones will kind of die off anyway, but you can take actions to affect it. You can see in the next screenshot the peasants in Mercia, so that information broken down even more. You can see Castilian peasants, you can see the Jewish peasants, the Sunni ones, and then the Catalan peasants as well. How many of those are in this location? And then also you can see 5 new peasants were born, 2 gained social status and adopted a different social class. 1 also became a peasant because of their social status. They got relegated down. Get back to your hovel and get working in the field. So you can see this. Every bit of information you can see here. I know we complain about the UI sometimes not looking fantastic in places, but especially if you're coming from EU4, the level of information you can see here is really good. You can see everything around your population, what they're doing, when they might promote, where they might go to, all these different things that's going to help you play the game that little bit better. So speaking of social classes, there are categories in which your population is split, making it possible to promote and demote people based on available jobs and demand. Different buildings employ different types of people, where burghers and labourers primarily produce goods in the economy. Nobles and soldiers provide the defense, and the clergy provide literacy, but all their different attributes matter as well. For example, a more literate clergy will also help you convert other populations. So again, everything kind of works together, kind of synergizes together, if we want to use business terms, and you can't just focus on one area, it will affect the other ones as well. And you can see in the next example, the monthly promotion in Paris. Monthly promotion is 132, and then listing all the different modifiers. Some of these are just base modifiers. You can see there's a library, a university, there are obviously buildings you've built. Encourage urbanization, I believe that is a cabinet task. Average literacy of peasants, again, that is all around your literacy rate. The city location rank, that obviously can't really change that much. Well, I guess the rank can change, but the location isn't going to change. Local works of art, so playing into the cultural side. Favorable social mobility age 2, that is an advanced unlock, and then lecturers minus 10%. I believe that is a privilege for one of the estates as well. And then you can see next month the following promotions will happen, plus 13 nobles. So some of those burghers potentially, or the clergy, are promoting into nobles, and then you're going to have more nobles, and then maybe your army's better, and that is how you kind of play through. They do mention here this is Paris in the mid-game, although there's no specific date. This population system makes EU5 feel more like a world simulator, where every choice you make will shape your nation's social fabric. Populations require essentials like food, clothing, and luxuries, which are integrated, as we said earlier, into the new trade system, of which they're going to talk more of in a future dev diary. They have covered that in previous Tinto talks, though, so if you want to catch up to that, there are videos on the channel covering the trade system. And you can see in the next screenshot, this is the Kingdom of France, obviously. You can see the fleur-de-lis in the top left-hand corner. And it also says Kingdom of France, kind of gives it away a little bit. And then this is the population needs that they currently have in the mid-stage of the game in this example. And there's kind of a lot to see here, but this is just listing out all the resources. And these are the ones through that filter system you can use in many areas of the game, where you can have it show which ones are actually in need. You can see the red ones, they're in desperate need. The orange ones, they're ones they probably have some of, but would like some extra ones if they could. And then you can see on the right-hand side of this, you can either expand the buildings you have, which are the bottom 2 there for paper and books, or on the right-hand side, this is your RGOs. This is something that's like in the land that you can expand your farming or logging or something like that. So silver, sturdy grains, sugar and fur, you can build your RGOs up, get those resources out of the land, and then use that in your buildings, or even some of these will just be used directly by your population as they require them. With surplus food and general prosperity, population will grow, and population, as we've seen, can be promoted to higher classes if the necessary jobs are available. Conversely, food shortages due to wars, starvation, poor harvests will shrink both your workforce and your military. And you can see a lot of this in the next screenshot. Yearly population growth in Carmona, and you can see the small modifiers here that are currently affecting how quickly the population is growing here. Once you get the Black Death, this is obviously going to be very important to try replenish your realm after that causes untold damage to your realm. On top of the general system, your population works for growth. There are also natural disasters and diseases that can cause problems for your realm. You can see that at the moment. the city of Naples, the wrath of the mountain. And obviously, if this goes off, a bad time is going to happen for the area around this. And you can see in this example, the nobles, clergy, the laborers, the soldiers, all taking huge damage due to the volcano going off and causing problems in Naples. And then the next example is Catania, another dangerous place to live. There's volcanoes, it's an earthquake zone. It isn't the best place to live, but also it's a very good place to live location-wise, and a lot of stuff going on in this area. So although you have this, you are going to have these one-off events, volcanoes, earthquakes, floods, and they are going to set you back. Again, bringing some kind of living ability to the world. It isn't going to feel as static as it does in EU4, I think. There's a lot of things going on, and that's just like the natural kind of ebb and flow of the world as well. You're going to be enjoying your game, and then a volcano happens. Bad times are going to occur during your gameplay. And then getting back to the population, neglecting population risks inciting rebellion, while satisfying their needs boosts productivity. Happy burghers lead to thriving trade, and content peasants result in higher food production. Beyond individual populations, EU5's living world thrives on dynamic interactions and historical events. Important historical events such as the Black Death or the Reformation trigger situations with unique mechanics, and they've been covered in pretty much all the dev diaries, how these situations play out. Again, those are the two they're mentioning here. For example, the bubonic plague might specifically decimate urban population, forcing players to quarantine cities or lose trade income. Your trade gets absolutely decimated by the Black Death, and then you've got to try recover out of that. You can see here, this is the world before the Black Death, and then afterwards, this is how the world looks. You can see some of these numbers are halved, some of them even worse than that, and then you have to play through this, recover your realm, and then try get back to that prosperity and see how well you can do after that. Keep in mind that disease and the plague specifically are dynamic, following trade routes and crossing borders. Different playthroughs will yield different results and levels of population loss. They've also, very similar to Crusader Kings 3, allowed you to randomize its spawn date, where it starts, and you can also turn it off entirely if you wish to do so. I'm going to leave this turned on. I think for most campaigns, I'll probably leave it on historical, but I do like sometimes in Crusader Kings randomizing the location it starts in, or sometimes the start date as well, just because it brings that little bit of a threat like that can randomly happen. And obviously it happened in a specific time in history, but it could have happened elsewhere, and the Black Death did come back. It didn't just happen once and then just went away. It did have little returns every couple of years, so you can change that and get the game playing how you want to. It is really good. If this is your first Paradox game, the game rules do allow you to change things, so you can play the game a little bit more like you want to. If you don't want to deal with the Black Death, you can just turn it off. Events such as this will have direct impact on you. It isn't just flavor. Losing population directly influences your gameplay by weakening your economy and military. Population are integral to the EU5's estate system. The nobles, clergy, burghers, and commoners all have their own ambitions and privileges. Granting these privileges often influences multiple estates at the same time. For example, granting serfdom rights to nobles will also oppress the peasant population, reducing their happiness whilst also boosting the nobles' loyalty. Conversely, freeing commoners will spark economic growth, but also anger the elites. They don't like it when they've got upward mobility. So, you don't want to be doing that, I guess, in some campaigns. And you can see an example of this here. Free mobility for the common people. Allow peasants to migrate, yes. Allow laborers to migrate. Noble estate satisfaction equilibrium -5%. So that level which the nobles should be generally happy is lowered by 5%, making it harder to keep them happy. Monthly progress towards free subjects, 0.10. That is the societal value system they've talked about. Again, if you are new to this, I have dev diary coverage on how that works and some of the examples of that. And then the estate satisfaction change upon granting this privilege, and you can see the modifier here. So in this example, the nobles are at 90%, so losing that 7.5 isn't that bad. The common people, they're at 50%, so giving that 15% extra for you is really going to help you in this example. Again, they bring in all your food. If they don't do that, then you're going to have to import it, or people are going to start starving as well. Europa Universalis 5 tracks population literacy and wealth throughout the game, influencing technological progress and trade efficiency. Advanced nations like Venice will benefit more from having literate populations to stimulate innovation, while nations with lower literacy will have a harder path towards reform. But you don't necessarily have to do that. You can have a lower literacy realm, and the fun way it works is sometimes they're like too stupid to realize they're missing out on other things. They talked about this in a previous dev diary. I think it was around trade. Like, you could charge more for some things if your realm's stupid, because they literally just don't realize that they could get the good cheaper in a different market. So it could be a fun way to play through it. I think most of the time you're going to try and improve your literacy. It just affects so many areas of the game, but it can have negative effects in certain areas. I believe that was covered in the Trade Tinto talk about a year ago now, I think, but it isn't always a case that you will always want to have the highest literacy. You probably do, but you could get away without doing it if you didn't want to. And you can see here the average literacy in Venice. The average literacy is 13.4%, and it is having the following effects. Your research speed is increasing by that same percentage. The skill of new artists is 1.34% better, so that makes your new artists, well, a little bit smarter. And then monthly progress towards innovative, 0.01, but that is monthly, so it does add up, slowly moving you towards a more innovative realm if you do want to do that. Cultural and religious diversity adds yet another layer of depth. Promoting a state religion might help unify population, but it will certainly alienate minorities, exposing you to unrest and potential revolts. While assimilation is possible, it is slow and very expensive. You'll need to spend precious resources like diplomatic finesse or military strength to ensure its success. And you can see here,
we are the French, lower your guns, surrender your castles. We will add your technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service us. La resistance is futile.
No, that's a different franchise. You can see in the screenshot, they're assimilating this area of their realm, acquiring French culture people in this area, and you can see the breakdown of the current cultures here. They are trying to move them to become French because the more people of that culture will help that culture get better in a way, and they're trying to do that. But as they said, sometimes it isn't worth doing this. You can have additional kind of accepted cultures in your realm. Again, if you're new to this series, you could have French and then go around and say, okay, I'm going to have Normandy, Breton. These are going to be accepted cultures. They're seen almost on the same level as French, and they'll give us some nice bonuses. If they're not accepted cultures, they generally give you negative modifiers, or just they're not as productive for you as they could be if they were part of your realm officially. This intricate system allows every nation to feel unique. After all, ruling the cosmopolitan Ottomans should be vastly different than playing in Japan, and you can see an example of this here, the Society of Japan. This is the primary culture, the common language is Japanese, and then the different information you can see for every version of this in the game. This is the cultural breakdown of Japan in the mid-game, the cultural tradition, the influence, the assimilation rate, the accepted cultures. That's the thing I was just talking about. In this example, they don't really have any other ones, but if you're playing in like the HRE, France, anywhere really on the map, to be honest, you are going to have these different cultures you might want to bring in as accepted, and then you can pick up additional bonuses from them. They have 5 artists, and they have 505 works of art. That is a lot of works of art, actually. Way more than I thought this would ever get to. They're going to show you another example here, and this is the Ottomans in mid-game, as they were just talking about. So you can see the cultural tradition, the cultural influence, the assimilation rate is minus 20% in this example. Accepted cultures is 4.6 versus 8.6. So as you can see, compared to the Japanese, which could only have 4 anyway, and they were only using 0.45 of that total, in this example for the Ottomans, 4.6 out of 8.6. So they can accept a lot more cultures into them, have that cosmopolitan, diverse realm, and that is going to help the realm as a whole expand and do better, cause less revolts, less uprising, and really get something out of these other cultural population that you do have. The world map of EU5 is Paradox's most ambitious to date, is what they say. I think I would probably agree with this, meticulously crafted from historical sources and reaching from 1337 to 1837, as we saw earlier, featuring over 1,000 playable nations. For example, the Holy Roman Empire is depicted as a myriad of tiny states, each with their own distinct population and borders, with some locations and nations as small as single cities. So you can just play in this game a single city in the HRE, or you could play as the whole HRE. You could be the emperor, or you could be a little city ruler and see how you can progress as you play through this. EU4, very famous, I guess, for these small nations that people would play and see how well you could do with them. To make this granularly possible, the map is split into over 30,000 detailed locations, which serve as a base building block for the game. These locations can be anything from rural hubs focused on food production to sprawling urban centres. They're going to show some of this off for us in a second. But look at this map of the HRE. Look how crazy it looks. Voltaire's worst nightmare, and it looks horrific on a map, but it also just looks so good, doesn't it, at the same time? Beyond these settlements themselves, geographic features play a crucial role in gameplay. Each location is defined by climate, vegetation, and topology. These three elements are mixed together to give diverse areas of the map and also bring important strategic decisions. For example, cavalry will dominate flat plains but will not do that well in hills. Infantry will excel in hills. Obviously, they can move around that little bit more. And you can see that in this example here, the mountains and how it will affect this area. So it has all these different modifiers: build time, road building, population capacity, frontage, food production, monthly development growth, all these negative modifiers. I mean, the possible frontage can actually help you because you're going to have like a 300 scenario where the mountains kind of narrow the frontage. So a smaller army will have less of a disadvantage against a large army because there's less of a front for them to fight over. So possibly this could help you, depending on what kind of realm you are, depending on what advances you have as that realm, you can lean into this kind of gameplay as well. And you can see as well, blocks vision from land, blocks vision from sea. So like some other games, but more so in this game than others, I think, you can actually hide your armies like behind a hill. You can hide your armies in a forest and people won't see them until they could naturally see them kind of in real life. They'd be able to spot them. So that's a really cool way that this is going to play out as well. The map's visual splendor enhances immersion, and seasonal changes such as snow-covered Alps in winter and the lush Indian plains in the monsoons, these will be shown on the map itself. These changes are not just visual, they also give tangible game effects such as blocking army movement or disrupting production. One really cool example they gave very early on in the dev diaries was where if you have a frozen lake, you can move your army over that lake, but if you leave them on that lake and it's no longer frozen, they obviously just drown and die. So that is a really cool mechanic. I know you won't often see that, but that just shows how the world does affect how the gameplay will happen. Again, having those frozen lakes, you can go over them in the winter, but obviously in the summer you can't do that, where you'd have to get a boat or something along those lines. But again, kind of mixes up how the game will play. And you can see an example of this, the mountains here. Look how cool they actually look now in some of these screenshots, and that will affect how your armies can move, how they can fight. And then also rivers and seas will bring some natural choke points, vital for trade and defense, such as the Bosphorus here. You can see another example of this, Constantinople, and then also what will happen here. If you control that passage, you can affect trade and a bunch of other things as well. Maybe people will come to you for trade rights, travel rights, all these kind of things if they're trying to pass through this area, and much other places as well in the world that you might want to do so. Navigation of all these systems is facilitated by an updated and advanced map mode system with over 70 different map layers. Players can adapt their view of the world and zero in on the information they require. This includes familiar map modes showing national borders, as well as new map modes showing geographical and topographical changes, raw goods, markets, and much, much more. You can see some examples of that here. This is the climate map mode showing us Europe. You can see where the climate is. That would affect maybe what you want to do in your campaigns. In the next one, you can see the raw materials map mode showing where these different resources are. If you have something that you're currently importing, maybe you will decide to attack somewhere different if you're trying to get a specific resource out of them. These are what you will see called as RGOs, resource gathering operations, bringing those resources out of the world itself. And then the last one they're going to show is the topography one, showing us the Alps, a bunch of other areas in the same part of Europe. And again, this is going to affect how you will play your campaigns. Do you want to be fighting in mountains? That's generally not a smart idea. And then also some other things you could get up to with that as well. As they said, there are a bunch of these different map modes. You can see it on the screen at the moment. They have this bar at the bottom and you can select through all of them. You can also favorite some of them so you can kind of customize that bottom bar with the ones that you're going to use the most often. In the next map, they're going to show us, this is the start date population map mode. So in 1337, this is how the world currently looks. This could get balanced before release, but it's probably pretty finalized now. And then the next screenshot shows you the same information, but this is in 1770. So you can see the crazy difference in population here. Now, some of it is kind of different just because the realms have unified a bit. But as you can see, they've not unified a whole lot, although it does look like the Byzantine Empire is sticking around in this example. So everyone will enjoy that part of it. Whether players choose to let their population starve while burning enemy farms, allow varied cultures to flourish, become an industrial powerhouse, or maintain their traditional feudal values, their decisions will have a profound impact on their population's food, health, security, even their willingness to fight for or against them. So yes, this game is very much a sandbox. If you're coming from something like Civilization, this is the first Paradox game you're playing, especially in EU5. There's so many ways you can play out the same realm. Maybe you stay a monarchy, maybe you end up being a republic, maybe you keep your feudal values forever, maybe you don't do that, maybe you go colonize and then you have all that to deal with, maybe you stay in Europe or Africa, wherever you're playing. There's so many ways you can play the same nation in this game, and in EU5 it looks like there's even more ways to do that. In this screenshot they're going to show us here, though, this is a war-ravaged location. This is after a huge war's happened with Poland, and you can see the different modifiers here. The population growth, very, very small, 0.10%. It is very slowly regrowing after this war. And then you can see in the next screenshot, after the location has recovered from that warfare, the population growth is now 0.47. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that's what, 4 times better, nearly 5 times better than the previous one. And then all the different modifiers here: prosperity, recovery effort, cheap food, stockpiles of food. And then this area will recover from that warfare and get back to helping your realm as a whole. And then in conclusion, as they say here at the end of the dev diary, they believe that the ambitious simulation of every living individual in 1337, coupled with a vast and detailed map, is what sets EU5 apart, providing a deep and immersive grand strategy experience. The detailed population system, with its cultural and religious depth, will transform every province into a microcosm of society, responding to each decision by you as a player. From the fractured HRE to the sprawling Yuan dynasty, EU5 worlds feel alive and provides endless adventure, where players must constantly adapt and make choices that will determine the fate of their realm and their people, or at least until your next game starts and it's a clean board and you can decide what to do in your next campaign. And with that, guys, that's the end of this first developer diary. As I've said, they've had Tinto talks for over a year now, Tinto flavors for roughly a year. I think we're up to like number 37. It is going to be Portugal tomorrow. And if you are new to it, Tinto talks are generally around systems. So this week it talked about discovering the new world, how that affects the new world with diseases and the Treaty of Tordesillas. And then Tinto flavors, which are every Friday, are a look into a specific realm. So this week it is Portugal, and they're going to give us information about their colonization, their trading, what you can get up to, what events they have, what specific content they have as well at launch, because many realms have a lot of content at the launch of this game. Yes, I know we've had the announcement of the DLC that has angered some people, but it does show that the game at launch has a lot of information here, a lot of cool flavor, and then they're going to build on that as the game expands, as the game gets played, see what we enjoy playing and what they want to bring to it as well. So do let me know in the comments what you think about this new style of dev diary they're doing. I like that it gives us a focused overview of a specific area and how this is going to play. And especially if you're new to the game, if you've heard about the release date, you're wondering what EU5 is, this will give you a good overlook over this. I will leave a link to it in the description down below. So if you want to read through it in your own time, look at the maps, look at what's going on with the information side of the game and all those kind of things. But as always, guys, hit that like button if you've enjoyed the video today. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. As I've said all the way through this, I've covered EU5 since it was announced, all the information, all the dev diaries. I also cover Crusader Kings 3 in a very similar manner, and I do live streams every Tuesday and Thursday. And you can come into the live streams, ask questions. I'm always happy to talk through things, show you information, depending on what you want to ask me about. But anyway, we'll leave it there for today, and I'll see you all next time.